I'm just sitting here. I got time. It's clear to see from up here. The world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful. You and me, we're meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back.
Of seeing that.
Yeah.
That's a substantial portion of the population.
Yeah.
So steer clear of indications of someone who just cannot visualize.
Right.
They'll miss so much. And on steel, you're working with a heavy material. You have to use every advantage you have. And you can use shape to replace a whole lot of structural. You get a better product with a fraction of time and the labor and work involved. And a lot less fairing in Mondo.
I guess. All right. I think we've done pretty good there.
Yeah.
That explains a lot of things. And of course, this book of Brent's again goes into it in detail. And one of the sections will be, we're just going to go quickly through your book and just a quick mention of a few things in there. It's a lot of fun to read it, and there's a lot of good, I think, life advice in your first few paragraphs. I like that one. Okay, so that'll end this particular section. So the next video, we will talk about. Okay, we have some good sea stories in there. That's fine. Okay, so wherever I took my boat, I came. It was, sailing people are pretty friendly lot, but some of them are a little snooty, right?
Yeah.
Particularly the shiny yachts, and
that's their problem.
We got yacht clubs from Washington State and all that kind of stuff in there. I took a lot of people would come up to me and they'd say, "Oh, I see you've got a steel boat," and they would give me a lot of criticism. So when you first started this, what was the early criticism that you took in general, people knocking you and your ideas? Well, your ideas, not you, because they wouldn't argue with you because you're an ex-boxer. And,
no frames, they'll go all floppy, they'll just flop around out there.
Okay, good one. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
You can tell how much flexing a hull is doing by the seams, the interior, it's cracking and things are starting to crack. I used cheap paint, discard paint, and talc for filler in my interior. In 6 Pacific Crossing, none of it is cracked. It hasn't flexed at all because of the monocoque principles I mentioned, structural. And when I was in my 20s, some guys from Vancouver Yacht Club said, yeah, they take a fiberglass boat, they put a big hydraulic backstay adjuster and they crank the hell out of it to shorten the waterline for measuring. You couldn't move it a 32nd of an inch that way if it was steel. And you can take a hydraulic jack from my chine to the hull deck joint on the other side. You can crank a 20-ton jack rock hard. You won't change that hull a 16th of an inch.
No shit. Wow.
Because you're trying to stretch the decks at 7,000 pounds or 5,000 pounds a linear inch diagonally. To do that, you're trying to stretch the hull at 7,500 pounds per linear inch diagonally. You might stretch a bulge in there, a bump or something like that, but you will not change that hull. But I could not convince them of that. And they said, oh, the first time it goes aground, it'll break up into floppy pieces. They survived 16 days of pounding in 12-foot surf. They survived months of pounding on a Panamanian reef.
Yeah.
And everything had been proven wrong, but there's nothing stupider than saying that which has worked for 350,000 miles in 40 years Won't work.
That's Brent's boat. You're talking about your personal boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They still don't get it. They still keep saying, "Oh, it'll never work." It's
Yeah.
worked for decades. Oh, but it'll never work.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of advice you want to walk away from. They can't be cured.
Yeah. You know, another thing in this coast, you know, it gets cold here. There's no question about it. I've heard from people that, well, firstly, when I'm talking to people about why I have the steel boat, talk about the insulation benefit of building with steel on your design.
Well, for one thing, you do not get deck leaks. A weld filled with epoxy does not leak in a lifetime. My first boat had a wooden deck. I was very careful and meticulous. It had leaked. My bunk on the windward side was wet whenever it was bashing the windward. And I didn't have insulation in it. I got talked out of that by another one of those experts. And it was wet from the water line down. It was damp in the wintertime. You have firewood stove. It was warm and about 3 feet around. That was it. And came back and I built the steel boat. I didn't want to put foam in the galley because of fire hazard. So everything there forward was foamed.
Right.
Everything behind that wasn't. It rained there, pissed down.
Yeah.
I tried putting sheet foam in. I tried every vapor barrier I could find. It was still sopping wet behind the sheet foam.
Oh, okay.
Finally I spray foamed it. And it became dusty dry. And something I did find with spray foam, if you've got a piece of steel the size of your fingernail poking through it, it'll drip like a leaky faucet.
Because the hot
Yeah,
heating
you have to get at least 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch over it.
Okay, so this thing, the Brent's hull is on the inside. Once all of the metal work is done.
Make sure you get lots of epoxy tar on the inside before you foam it. The foam sellers, they'll say, "Oh, it gives you all the protection you want. You don't need no paint." They haven't owned boats for 20 years.
Yeah.
They haven't walked around the boatyard and seen these folks and fairs spray foamed over steel rusting through from the inside. And they say steel boats always rust out from the inside, but there's no need to paint the inside. Put two and two together. They rust out from the inside because you don't paint the inside. Friends of mine went down to see those Amazons being built, imitation fiberglass boats. One coat of primer inside. The outside was welded, most of the weld ground it off. You could see 1/8 of an inch into the gap of an 8-inch plate. And the owner said, "Spray former's coming tonight." John said, "Do any more?" "No, it's all done, ready for the spray former." There's one coat of primer on it. And of course they rust from the inside out. And as far as those welds are gone, if you put too much weld on, it warps. So the way to keep it looking like a fiberglass boat, underweld it.
Right.
A friend in one of my 36s, she's been cruising the West Pacific since the 90s. So he saw an Amazon drag an anchor. It bumped into a mooring buoy. The transom fell out.
The transom?
Yeah, it was held by, it was after welding the outside and grinding it flush to make it look like a fiberglass boat. It was about the thickness of a beer can holding it together.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But that's why you make it look that way, you know. But the thing about origami, too, you got to bear in mind is all distortion is caused by frames. You weld a plate to a frame, and then you shrink the edges by welding the seams. Less material, it has to go somewhere. You're shrinking the edges. Frames stop it from moving, so it oil cans between the frames. The only frame boats I've seen that stayed fair is where they lay the plate on, lay the stringers on, weld the longitudinals, and it'll shrink. Like my 36, you can stick a straight edge between the shear and the chine, and you find 1.25 inch outside curve because you shrunk the edges. Now, if that was tied to frames, it couldn't move, so it'd have to go somewhere.
Right.
Get your oil canning.
Yeah.
But with origami, you got thicker plate to begin with, which is 3.5 times as resistant. 3/16 is about 3.5 times as resistant to distortion. And the other thing is you got no frames holding back. It takes its natural shape.
Right.
So you need zero bondo, zero filler, zero cosmetics.
It's all one effectively all merges, melds,
Yeah.
merges into one form.
Yeah, and it takes its shape from the shrink. It lets it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did find on decks, if you like you're welding the longitudinal seams, it wants the oil can. if you put a little curve in the deck, it takes care of that. But I found with an 18-inch side deck, you need one longitudinal at least. With 24-inch, you need two longitudinals. Your longitudinals are keeping it fair, not your transverse beams. The transverse are only holding the curve.
Okay.
But without longitudinals, your deck's oil can like crazy.
So I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not a boat builder.
Yeah.
I had fiberglass boats, and I lived aboard one in the Nanaimo area for a year, and it was hell. It was a thing. So when I had my little boating incident out there and I met Brent, I walked into his boat because he had a chimney. Imagine, a chimney on a boat, and it was smoking. Yeah. I said, "What the hell is this?" So I went in the boat, and Brent explained to me that we just talked about foaming, but I think maybe people don't understand. You foam the entire interior of the boat, every square inch, and so you have a wood stove in there, and of course, in our area here, there's wood galore on the stove. So
Well, I remember my first boat, I taught them about putting the wood stove in. That's insane. Nobody uses wood. Use an oil stove. And they laughed and ridiculed me. Why, about, I guess it was about 6 or 7 years later, I was anchored in Montague Harbor. 6 boats, 3 had wood stoves. You know, but I hadn't realized my first boat. I bought a Washington Stove Works Gypsy cast iron stove. Not airtight, useless. It burned the wood in no time flat. And it was only years later I discovered the airtight stove, built myself one, and they could burn up to 14 hours on one load of wood.
Right.
You know, the trick is a controllable airtight stove. And the old traditional, Alan Farrell in the China Cloud, he had old Lunenburg cook stoves, cast iron, made for cooking, not for heating. And all his life he was feeding wood into this thing, and it was in his 80s when Mike Taylor built him an airtight stove. He was astounded. He said, I can go away for hours and I come back and it's still warm. And I can load it up at night and I get in the morning and it's still warm. All that time living with a artsy-fartsy, cutesy pie traditional stove. They had full-time crews to feed those stoves all night while they're on watch.
Oh, yeah. Jeez,
And, but there again, artsy-fartsy don't solve your problems. Be practical.
So you also tell people that if you're going to, well, yeah, on this coast you're going to put a stove in there, and you advise them to make it a stainless steel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why is that, Brent?
My first stove was mild steel. It was flaking rust constantly. It was a hell of a mess. I was worried about rusting through. I finally got to go with some stainless. Built it in stainless and never touched it. Now my last stove, it had, guy gave me some 400 series stainless, which was magnetic. I used it after the top and the front. That corroded through after about 15, 20 years. The 316 stainless inside was perfect.
Right. Now what do you mean by that, C1?
Type 316 stainless versus,
okay.
This might have been a Type 400 stainless, but it's magnetic, you can't trust it. You go to the scrapyard to buy your sink, take your magnet. I had magnetic sinks rust. I've had magnetic knives and forks and spoons rust. Stuff made in India is non-magnetic. Stuff made in the rest of Asia is magnetic. You know, always check with a magnet when you're going to a scrapyard and when you're buying any kind of stainless.
I think I lucked out when you were building my stove. We ended up finding a pulp mill that was, I don't know, changing or something, and all of that stainless piping ended up in a yard, and so just briefly describe, you know, I mean, the stove that I've had now, it's just simplicity, and it's all stainless, and it throws out heat like unbelievable. A couple of logs at night, and I have big heavy coals in the morning. I'm still warm. So mention a little bit about how you built my stove, because it's in your book, isn't it?
Yeah, we went to a scrapyard. We got a piece of 12-inch stainless pipe. Now people take a round pipe and they cut a flat spot on top to give a flat cooking surface. Makes very little space between your door and your top, so the smoke can go either way. I've been taking around and cut the top and score it there and there so it goes like this and bend it out. You get an extra 4 inches of height there.
Right.
And that way you got decent amount of space above your
So
door.
you actually stretch that.
Yeah.
You score it on the side.
You score it,
Yeah.
and then you bend the top part out.
Right. And then the other side, the same thing.
Same
and then-
thing. So you get
Right.
an extra 4 inches
Yeah.
of height there.
Right.
And I remember the good old days when we'd walk into the scrapyard with a list and walk up with everything you needed.
Yeah.
And then some guy in Portland bought up all the scrapyards. And no, public's not allowed in now. It goes to China.
Yeah.
It's getting damn hard to find now. There are some scrapyards that'll sell you.
Yeah.
And some scrap dealers will save you the good stuff.
Yeah.
But they're hard to find. Back then, we'd walk into the list and get everything we want. The 4-inch stainless chimney pipe. Some was 8-inch wall, some was 14-gauge wall. Never burned through it in a million years. Used to walk in any scrapyard and buy it.
Yeah.
Now it's damn near impossible to find.
Right.
It's getting harder
Yeah.
now.
Well, you'd have to. I guess you'd have to get lucky or at a scrapyard someplace or just buy it. But the thing of it is that stove has been in my boat 10, 12 years, and it's absolutely and it was welded, all stainless steel welds, everything in there stainless steel welds, and it's got a baffle in the top. You slide that back and forth.
Yeah, you slide it forward to get it started, to get the chimney going up the back, and you slide it back so it burns this way, comes around over the top of the baffle. Burns your exhaust gases off, and it also
Distributes the heat, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it tends to just burn from the front back, so you can have it burn back and burn a big pile of coal in the back.
Right.
I got a rod with a plate on it. I used to level it out before throwing another log on top.
Right. Yeah.
That way you can
Yeah.
keep stocking it up.
And so this works really well with going through the deck as well.
Yeah,
The
I
steel deck.
just weld it right through. Well, I have welded my last boat right through the steel deck, and it rusted a bit around there. No matter how cool I kept it, it affected the paint there.
Right.
So now I put a donut around the set in flush with a deck of stainless.
Right.
About to keep the stainless within 3 or 4 inches of the actual.
Right, right.
Same with exhaust pipe. It runs through the transom.
Yeah.
Even a water cooled exhaust, paint will give off around it. So now
Yeah.
I put a stainless donut in there, so it's stainless for the first couple inches away from the exhaust pipe.
So I guess when you think of the practicalities of steel,
Yeah.
I mean it's a tough substance. It can take a lot of
Yeah.
like exhaust pipes and cleats and all these kinds of things can be welded
Exactly.
and not screwed in. I know my Allberg there, it leaked like a sieve through
Yeah.
where the stanchions were
Oh, yeah.
screwed into the thing, and it rotted all the balls. It was just a nightmare. So anyway, okay, so well that'll be another one. So then they'll move on. Yeah, we've kind of crossed for
Yeah.
some of the things, but it'll all blend in, and I
Yeah, you can
think.
start letting it.
Yeah, I think so too. We break it up into those sections so people
Yeah.
can watch it a little bit at a time.
Yeah,
Come back to it. So, so one of the things I had down here was you've been with this origami thing for how many? 40
Yeah,
years.
more
Yeah.
than that, yeah.
So the thing is,
More than that.
would you change anything initially?
Not much. Well, I went to 12 gauge on my deck, trying to keep the weight down. And I wish I'd gone 10 gauge or 11 gauge because I was worried about stability and keeping her stable. A 36 footer I did. I built in a steel mast. Alaskan bought it, finished it in Alaska, and sailed out to Australia and back with a steel mast. Gone 2 years. He got back and he got a good deal on aluminum mast, so he switched to aluminum mast. Did another 2 years around the Pacific. Didn't notice a difference. Another guy had switched from steel to aluminum, heavy aluminum, Schedule 40. Said, "What's the difference?" Well, when I'm filling my water tanks, it's less sensitive to which tank is full. That's all he could notice.
Right.
So the idea that saving 2 ounces here up your mass is going to make a noticeable difference is bullshit. You want to know the difference? Put a big fat guy on deck and go for a sail. You won't notice the difference. So this nitpicking, saving 3 ounces off a block or a shackle, is total bullshit. I calculated the switch from 1/4 inch to 5/16 rigging on my boat. It had a total difference of 17 pounds over the entire rig. less than halfway up because you got two lowers. That's about the equivalent of a crow landing on your masthead or a case of beer on your side deck.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, there is points where you will make it unstable, but there's a lot of forgiveness there. And this idea of skimping
Yeah.
to save an ounce here, an ounce there. Yeah, in a racing yacht where you might lose by 5 seconds, sure. But a cruising boat, it defies all logic. Now you take what has worked well for people, or say a circumnavigation, and it hasn't broken. If you add 10%, it's never going to break. And you could pay.
So this is the point that if somebody's building one of your boats, that they could build their own steel mast, and that the aluminum mast, even though it seems logical that that'd be the better mast to put up, it's not the case.
Well, right back then, say in the 90s, and late 80s, I built the 36 for a guy. He wanted aluminum mast. He bought the brand new aluminum mast extrusion, $6,000. Steel was $300. But now that there's so many boats being wrecked and so many masts free or dirt cheap, I'd go aluminum.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is going a little lighter on my deck plate, trying to save a little on this and that, trying to go tinfoil lifeline instead of Schedule 40. Makes zero difference. You'll never notice in a million years.
Oh, the wire, as I said, when I was in that storm, I think I still got a welt from being thrown against my wire.
Yeah.
And I damn near went overboard because it gave. But what I have now, of course, with your design is the steel. Yeah. You know, you're not going anywhere.
The peace of mind on deck. You just don't feel that precarious.
Yeah.
There's a big screw up on stock boats. They go the plastic coated wire. That's a perfect recipe for crevice corrosion. A friend over in Gorge there last summer, he had a bunch of friends on board with the plastic lifelines. They leaned against it. Suddenly, grandparents, parents, and toddlers are in the water.
Right.
It corrodes invisibly behind the plastic. And you lean against it the wrong way one night, and you're in the water, you're both sailing away from you. And it has happened too many times. Stainless rigging wire is far better. My intermediate is stainless 1x19 coordinate rigging wire. It's been there for 40 years. Doesn't look a bit different.
Yeah, but you'd prefer that.
I prefer the solid one, yeah.
Really?
There's a guy in Olympia.
What's the length? What's the width of that, or diameter?
I use 3/4 Schedule 40. I used 1 inch.
1 inch. Yeah.
And the difference in setting between 3/4 and 1 inch, you couldn't tell it.
Yeah, no, 2 inches would be way too much. Yeah.
But one guy built the boat for a single keeler. He was in Yachty Land, and he went for a wire top lifeline, and he
Yachty Land.
came up here, and I said, "When you go pipe on that?" "Oh, I kind of like that. It looks good." Then he went and crewed on a boat in Mexico that put solid lifelines on. He came back within the hour. He had the wire off and the pipe welded on. Once you can't imagine the sense of security it gives you until you felt it and experienced it on a dark night. Otherwise, you can't tell people.
Right.
And people have, one guy had put lifelines on it, set it on top of the bulwark pipe. And it's strong, it's as strong as the pipe itself. He thought he wanted yachty, so he had somebody put it down on the deck. Now he's got a place every few inches to bust his toes on, which he didn't have before.
Yeah.
You know, and even the fiberglass boats, if they bolt to the bulwark, there's less chance of a leak. For one thing, it's not laying on a flat surface with a puddle of water around it. And I saw a Valiant 32 in here. It's nice wide side decks, a 6-inch wide bulwark, and the stanchion set inside of that cut it down to 18-inch side decks.
Right.
Now you got a stanchion laying on a deck, water sits in there, it can get in. Set on top of the bulwark, now you got an extra 6 inches of side deck, you got nothing to bust your toes on, and you got a higher lifeline.
I love the side deck thing.
That's called yachtiness. Well, my first boat had an 18-inch side. My first boat had a 2-foot side deck. I took it for granted, sailing around the Pacific for 2 years. Came back, I can get away with 18 inches. I cursed that decision for 10 years, and I couldn't wait to get back to 2-foot side decks. 26, you can only get away with 18 inches. That's all you can fit. Right. But anything over 30 feet, anything less than 2 feet is obstacle course going forward, which is dangerous in itself.
Yeah. Well, I think when I was buying the steel, I think it came in 36.
Yeah.
36 feet.
Oh, the steel plate, yeah. We get 8 by 36 sheets, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why would you go less or more? Why not just go? I mean, you built a 29-footer, but I'm just thinking.
I was talking about side decks.
Oh, I know the side deck. Yeah, what you're talking about.
But 8 by 36 sheet. And, I read in one of Bruce Roberts' books, Use small sheets because it's easier to handle. Duh, it's something you can buy in a full sheet to finish the whole boat. You want to weld
That's
together
crazy,
bits and
isn't it?
pieces.
That's just
Oh, yeah.
absolutely insane. When you can take 36 feet and not do anything to it, and
Yeah.
it maintains all of its structural
Yeah.
integrity, then yeah. I don't regret 36 feet. I'm just all by myself. But it's, well, you have guests who come, friends who come in the
Yeah,
boat.
for
and
sure,
go
yeah.
from, I've had family and friends and gone cruising here.
Yeah.
And one guy came into my boat. He was he had a little fiberglass boat over
Yeah.
in Comox Harbor, 34, and he came in my boat. And of course, your stove is in there. This stainless steel, and it's 24 inches.
Yeah.
24 inches long. So I mean, a 24-inch log in there at night, it lasts all night. Believe me.
Yeah, for sure.
And so he sat down and he looked around at the boat. And he up and down, and the windows are all bolted in.
Yeah.
I mean, and plexiglass windows. You can hit it with God knows what wave. It's not doing anything, right? And he said to me, he says, this just feels like a home. I said, well, that's the general idea.
I met a couple in Mexico with a 35-foot Catalina. And I said, "You going down to the South Pacific?" They said, "No, we've seen how people know what to do and build their boats, and this boat's nowhere near that."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think we'll cut it there, and we'll take a little break, and then we'll go through the book, and that'll be it.
Sure.
Do you want to get a coffee or something?
It's another 7 minutes before the coffee pot comes out.
Well, we can wait for 7 minutes,
Yeah,
and then the last section we'll do.
Yeah, sure.
We'll go through the book and
Sure, yeah.
talk about a few things. Wouldn't that just be fucking awful if this thing didn't work?
I think
This
he
is
covered it
the
pretty-
first time with this setup, so
I think he covered it pretty good there.
yeah. I
New
think so.
ideas and new ways of thinking.
And you know what? Break it up, and then so people can watch it as they go along.
And somehow, poetically, as we clear away all this haze, the fog lifts.